Thanksgiving. 'Twas a wonderful time for both sports fans and non-sports fans alike. Eating food, spending quality time with family, and of course, watching an NFL team have an aneurysm.
This is like the light box. You could have gotten numbers, but just didn't.
You better hurry.
Oh,
this is disaster in the making here. You're going to have to do something when it comes down to this play. Incomplete, and the game is over. Completely botched at the end by the Bears.
Since when did Mario Cristobal coach in the NFL? That's the only possible reason I can think of for this. It's certainly no excuse though. Smooth brain clock management is a quick and easy way to go straight into the coaching shadow realm. In fact, you're already there. This is a certified Chicago Bears moment. Anyway, back over to college. We've reached the end of the regular season. This week will be the week to determine the end of a lot of seasons and the trajectory of playoff contenders. Who will rise and who will fall to their rivals. Let's see if any of the tomfoolery this week can surpass the Bears. You dare step into the lair of Gentiball? You must die! This is figurative considering the fact that Tulane wasn't playing Boise State, but the sheer audacity to even attempt to sneak to their ranking was an insult and nothing more. So said to the football gods who rejected your plea to hold on to the football every drive. It seemed every time I left the TV to go to the bathroom, I returned to another Tulane turnover. While Daria Mensah had a decent day, having a bunch of butterfingers around him did little good in the endgame. Meanwhile, Seth Hennigan was near perfect in the game. In fact, that team itself was much cleaner than that of the brown wave of poop Tulane brought to their home field. The results have Memphis fans asking themselves, what if they actually beat UTSA? It would have ended in the same result. The group of 5 spot belongs to Gentiball until it doesn't. There's no longer a need to worry about a second non-Power 4 team entering the playoffs now. It's an unfortunate outcome for the group of 5 fans, but it's the expected one. Despite the collapse the Green Wave had on the field, they have long been a lock for the American Championship, where they will go head-to-head with the American military. Someone send them to the Big 12. They'd fit right the hell in. The Beavers are still parading their undefeated conference record as they finish the season 1-0 in the Pac-2. For your reward, you get to be swiftly put to death by the hand of Gentiball and Maddox the Madman. As expected as pain from putting your balls on a cactus, Boise State started out slow against the Beavers, but as the gates began to open up through decent blocks on the line, it assured that this would be over soon. Mind-blowing revelation here, but Gentiball once again dominated at the line. Despite their defense being exposed at the hands of Darius Clemens, Ashton Jeanty doing whatever he wants makes up for the incompetence on the defensive side of the ball. Boise fans are throwing more haymakers at Travis Hunter fans than anyone else. That seems to be the most prominent rivalry this season. It'll be the greatest battle of who can pad their stats as much as possible, as for whatever reason they have faith in a group of voters who are probably going to end up voting for Cade Klubnik by accident. Nonetheless, for the 11th time this season, the Blue Horsies let Gentiball do all of the work for them as they now only have one win away from the playoffs. They've got one opponent in their way though, that being the Rebels of UNLV. This game has 2 outcomes for Boise, a first round bye or no playoffs at all. The Beavers have found out real quick the struggles of the Mountain West. With the exodus they suffered in the offseason, this isn't coming as much of a surprise. But what would their gift be for technically being conference champions? That's the neat part. You don't get one. Fuck you. Get out! The Cowboys are like the 18-year-old dog that walks on half a foot and barks like a man who just swallowed 12 cigarettes. You wonder why the family is still keeping it alive and beg for them to put it out of its misery. But they won't. They never will. Such is the state of Mike Gundy's time at Oklahoma State. This was no football game. This was an extermination of everything in Stillwater. Even the brain-eating amoeba that resided in Stillwater were disintegrated by that of Deion Sanders and company. Shedeur Sanders took like a boot to an ant and stomped all over the Cowboy defense. They got so badly walloped that Travis Hunter was racking up stats on both sides of the ball. Gundy basically did Hunter a favor because stats like these are likely to overcome anything Gentiball has for the Heisman Trophy. He did more favors for them than he did for his own team. Complete lack of preparation, discipline, multiple penalties in clutch time, not even a single fucking point, and to put the cherry on the absolute shit sundae, 4 carries for Ollie Gordon throughout the entire game. This is an episode of offensive incompetence that's hard to overcome. Son of a Gundy, The monkey with symbols in your brain would have had better play calling than this. Through the efforts of complete failure from Oklahoma State, the Buffs disembowel their opponent and will now have to pray for the Big 12 to follow suit in an attempt to back their way into the Big 12 championship. The media and coaching staff alike will cry to the sky if they're not in. Somehow, the Cowboys will finish the year winless in the Big 12, but undefeated versus the SEC. With how long Gundy has been in Oklahoma State, it wouldn't surprise me if they gave him a year to right the ship. But if things are not changed at a light speed pace, then get ready to learn Alabama rehabilitation. As I said last week, the results of the Penn State-Minnesota game were more of a detriment to Wisconsin than anyone else. The grand entrepreneur of 7-5 will be given his rightful spot on top of the world of mid, especially when you consider the fact that it was his birthday. As Minnesota has been doing the entire season, they would lay back and watch as the opposition fell flat on their face. Braden Locke had devolved the chastity belt until further notice. He couldn't hit a rat if it was on his shoe. Max Brosmer, on the other hand, was shredding through the defensive line like Wisconsin cheese. He'll be taking that along with the axe. PJ Fleck knew this was coming. You can see him celebrating like he's a character in The Sims. The Badgers tried running the ball, but that's all they did. Tried. Remember that one time I said Luke Fickell was a home run hire at Wisconsin? I'm starting to think not even Cincinnati fans believe this. Wisconsin fans are now entering their worst streak of football since the 90s with little signs of it getting better. It's also your first losing season in 22 years. We're not in a good place? Damn, how'd you figure that one out? You got fans wishing for Paul Christ back and you just now acknowledge this? You got an off-season to go into the coaching safari and find someone who can make your offense more useful than a sandpaper condom. In the meantime, enjoy the couch. Get out! For starters, it's a crime against humanity that this game is not on Thanksgiving anymore. If there is anyone that is pissed about that, it's Chicago. It would have put some embarrassment off their back. Nonetheless, the Egg Bowl will always be the Egg Bowl. There will be significant tomfoolery for all. In a surprising twist, Mississippi State actually threw the ball better than Jackson Dart and Ole Miss, as clearly they didn't learn anything following the loss to Billy Napier. The catcher? They couldn't run the ball worth an ass. Meanwhile, Ulysses Bentley did as most SEC running backs did against the Cowbells and tore through their line like paper. With the most backward shot of making the college football playoffs, the Rebs knew at the bare minimum they'd have to win today. That way, Lane Kiffin can use them as a tool for propping up the SEC. See, look, the SEC is hard competition. Yeah, right, tell that to Toledo. Despite the incredible slow start, the Rebels would shut down any sort of hope the Cowbell fans had left, and would end off the regular season with a dub over their carcass of a rival. But they'll need some serious favoritism from the playoff committee to get into the top 12. But I've got better odds of going on a date with Molly McGrath. Mississippi State fans can now take solace in the fact that their season is officially over. Jeff Lebby can get back to the drawing board and focus on beating a conference opponent next year. Or finding some new receivers. Yeah, they've got a nice big bucket list to work on. With how horrifically bad Stanford is, I find it hilarious they still found a way to win an ACC game. Most teams in college football learn to get better as the season progresses. Stanford, however, is decaying faster than a banana left outside on a beach in Florida. And now they are forced to return to warfare with a long-forgotten rival. Did y'all know these two were rivals? I didn't. I knew that just as well as I knew they had a football team. Thus, as Coach Ken wanted, drama occurred. Walker Egat threw a career-high 4 touchdown passes. When the quarterback on the opposing side is forcibly handing you gifts, it's pretty hard not to take advantage of all of them. The play calling by Troy Taylor's staff was suboptimal at best, and the team was as motivated as Eeyore to win the game. All this wealth and nothing to show for it. Therefore, pain would arrive at your doorstep.
Blitz comes. Egan has time. Corner throw. It's hurry. It's a touchdown.
This should be a familiar feeling at Stanford. As a wise man once said, losing is in the nature of the conference. On the bright side, the losing is finally over. Before the end of the season, they would collect what seems to be a win for them. Andrew Luck is coming back to the trees. No, he doesn't have an extra year of scholarship. Rather, he will be running the program as the general manager. We have a vision, he says. Well, you don't have to look too far to find it. Anything brought to the table next year should do better than this. At least you had a better record than Florida State. It's safe to say there wasn't a person on planet Earth who anticipated how this game went. Even if you were dumb enough to pick the Yellow Jackets in this game, I doubt you saw the game lasting 5 hours. Such stupidity is what occurs in the sport of college football. Despite the ludicrous overtime rules doing nothing to favor the excitement this game brought, this is still a game worthy of its own video. So you'll have to wait until Thursday to see the cataclysm unfold. It's only fair, the game itself took an extra day to finish. The so-called Game of Heroes. The only hero in this game is the clock, which sets as a reminder that this game will end at some point. You missed them, and now they're back. The Iowa Hawk-Tuas have returned to their form of which offense is suboptimal and not required. While offense wasn't required for Nebraska either, the pain they experience from watching it is mandatory. There's more joy-sticking corn up the hoo-ha than there is of watching either of these two teams trying to do it. Jackson Stratton, despite being the 17th string quarterback, proved to fit right in with the rest of the quarterbacks Iowa had. Without the over-reliance of Caleb Johnson being able to bail them out of the smooth brain play calling, he would be forced to attempt to pass the ball. He'd have the entire night to do it since Nebraska followed after Arkansas and spent the entire night shaking themselves instead of their opponent. It would take all the way up until the third quarter for them to actually score a point. Despite doubling their offensive yards, every time you would look away, they'd piss away the football again. This would eventually lead to the Hawkeyes taking the lead for the Cornhuskers. What's that? Nebraska has the ball with 30 seconds left with a chance to win the game? Hopefully they don't stay in character and piss away the game again.
Johnny goes! Llewellyn thinks he has the ball.
Dylan Raiola gets the ball stripped from him in the most pivotal moment of the game. How shocking. Now that Nebraska is once again on the back foot in a one-score game, let me show you something just as shocking.
Snap, hold, kick. Got it! Hawks win!
The football gods have given you a bowl game already, Cornman. You will not be gifted two lifted curses in the same season. Iowa once again wins by doing the equivalent of Jack Kirk Ferentz will be given an extension for this, I bet. How they continue to do this is as much of an enigma as Nebraska's record in recent close games. This might actually be good news for the Huskers, though, as they will likely be given a lowly group of 5 team to beat up on, ensuring their first winning season in a generation. Just be thankful it won't be Troy. The fans of both of these teams know who's playing quarterback for their team. Nobody else does. This is one of those cases where both team seasons come to a close on this day. The injury bug has raided Utah's roster like a Chinese username to a Clash of Clans base. They haven't felt the satisfaction of winning a football game since September, and if it weren't for Arizona, UCF would be feeling this similar pain. As for the game itself, RJ Harvey was able to celebrate breaking the school's touchdown record. This should have put him as the quarterback. Nobody else on that team could do it. They had 4 different guys flinging balls out there. More often than not, they were aimed at Utah's defensive backs instead of the Central Florida receivers. Eventually, Utah's game plan was just them saying, screw it, let the defense do all the work. Iowa and Tennessee can't be any prouder. Despite Harvey doing everything he could to keep them in the game, when the quarterback in your own team is throwing passing touchdowns for Utah, not even Genty Ball could overcome that feat. The lowest of the low for the Riskler at the worst possible time. The Gus Bus has hit a set of spike strips once again. With another conference loss, it's basically rolling on rims. Eventually, said bus would be evacuated and transferred to a new part of Florida, Tallahassee. Yes, Gus has left Central Florida to the north to control the offense of the ultimate tank. This is going to be beautiful to watch. Though the Ute season is over, Kyle Whittingham mended the ship by ending the 8-game losing streak and set possible hope for the future. What's even better, you're not Oklahoma State. Well, we've been waiting for this one all year long. Michigan has been a borderline bowl-eligible team this year, and Ohio State is a title contender now. They've been frothing out the mouth for their revenge over Michigan, and with them coming to the horseshoe, it sets to be a bloodbath for the Wolverines not seen since before the streak began. Ohio State would begin said bloodbath at kickoff, or in the first quarter, or the second, or any time. Are y'all serious? Yes, weird things happen in rivalry games, but this isn't just weird. This is stupid. You've been telling everyone all season long that Michigan was only able to beat the Buckeyes because they cheated, all while dogging the rest of the conferences for the exact same thing you're doing now. The Nuts struggled to get any offensive momentum against the Michigan defense. Will Howard spent more time throwing at air than he did to his receivers. Michigan did Michigan things, with their offense being as existent as non-virgin League of Legends players up until Khalil Mullings was able to move the football. Like always, the Buckeyes got exposed for their soft defense, just as every other time they played the Wolverines under Ryan Day. You were favored by 21 points at home! What the hell are you doing? Somehow, the game was still tied in the fourth quarter, but a Dominic Zavada field goal with minimal time left put Michigan up by 3. It would be up to a Will Howard legacy drive to save the Buckeye season. But 3 downs later, and every poor Bucknut fan who showed up to the game would have a front row seat to the ultimate shit show.
Do or die for Ohio State. Howard in trouble. Incomplete. Ohio State turns it over on downs.
Now I know what you're thinking. Losing to an unranked Michigan team means little at home when you're going to the Big Ten Championship in the playoffs. Well, I got some great news for you. Penn State just took your spot. Yep, clown of the week. In fact, you might be the fucking circus of the century. Ohio State waited till the benches cleared to show any sort of fight against Michigan. So much so that the police came and pepper sprayed the players. Not only did the Nittany Lions likely yank your Big Ten Championship appearance from you, you will now likely be forced to play on the road against whatever playoff team you're lined up against. Like Khalil Mullings himself said, you gotta learn how to lose.
You know, I'd like to know where Lou Holtz is right now.
After all the bullshit and tribulation the Volunteers have put me through the SEC schedule, it's always nice to know Vanderbilt awaits at the end of the season. Yes, they're better this season than previous by a mile, but Tennessee owns Vanderbilt, and they should come out and...
It's a foot race at midfield. Junior Sherrill gonna take the opening kickoff back for a Vanderbilt touchdown.
Okay, guess we're doing this then. This week, on Days of Our Vols, with playoff hopes on the line, it's the perfect time for the Vols to die. The defense left all their muscle mass in Neyland because they are getting as much pressure on Diego Pavia as a squirrel to a rhinoceros. Nico, I'm gonna have a stroke on Saturday, couldn't remember whether or not he had any receivers to rely on. And thus the Tennessee play calling once again reverted to run up the middle or die trying. Of course, you're a Tennessee fan. It's never enough to lose. You have to humiliate yourself in such a way that Tennessee fans consider playing golf on Saturdays. But then, just when the Fire Heupel tweets went out, a miracle happened.
Now, I'm really mad.
Suddenly from the brink of death, Tennessee's offense has returned. Missing from the action since the second half of Oklahoma, it was back. The Vols actually played like a contender for the title. Nico is making elite passes, the receivers are catching footballs, and there was only 1 hold per drive. Vandy fans should be used to this feeling by now, but under Heupel, more often than not, bullshit prevails. Tennessee now has 6 in a row over the Commodores. But the vacated wins! Vacate my balls off your face, how about that? This win also lands Tennessee a guaranteed spot in the college football playoffs. Which means... the Vols are back! Lord almighty, both of these teams need to go back to the drawing board because the offense isn't offensing. It continues to shock everyone that Shane Beamer goes complete Chad mode once the fall season nears its end. The ball transferred to the opposite team more times than any player to Clemson under Dabo Swinney. Just as Spencer Rattler did 2 years ago, Lenora Sellers exposed the Clemson defense. He broke more tackles than Phil Maffa on a good day. Said good was rather unpleasant for Maffa, as his run game was somehow outdone by Cade Club of Dicks. Both staffs are as allergic to covering the quarterback run as Ryan Day is to beating Michigan. I'm not sure what purpose Wes Goodman has here for Clemson, but at this point they need to throw his ass on the field. There's got to be somebody on the team who can tackle. The so-called Magic Man was blitzing through the defensive line like queso at an all-you-can-eat Burger King buffet. The Cox weren't even playing like title contenders either. They weren't soft, but they weren't rock solid either. All of this would result in Carolina taking a 3-point lead with a minute left. But Klubnik would get the Cardinal out of his ass on the final drive, sending his Tater squad down the field in an attempt to tie the ball game. It took him all game, but he finally managed to find his rhythm. Clemsoning is back! Are we entirely sure that the Big Ten West has been eliminated? Illinois is still living their season on easy mode, so we can't be too sure. Northwestern football is contributing as much to their fans as the baseball team is. The ones that actually showed up might just be sitting there for the rest of the winter, waiting for the next team to come to the same field and piss themselves in a similar format. One positive is that it won't be Pat Bryant slapping you in the face as he did here today. With Burt Bielema being able to open up the run game this time, it was a miracle as to how Northwestern was even able to keep this competitive. The Wildcats' defensive backs are as fast as Peyton Manning is. The only thing keeping their corpse dragging is Luke Altmaier constantly throwing layups to you. But as their record would suggest, they would not be outdone in terms of self-mutilation. A macrocetic interception would assure the closing door to another mid-year of Wildcat football. At Northwestern, this is the standard. They can spend this offseason looking for something, just something, to convince their fans that David Brown isn't wasting the university's money on a sport that a total of 12 students care about. Illinois is a bowl win away from a prestigious 10-win season under Burt Bielema, who believes this team can play with anyone in the country. If it's the same one that went into overtime with Purdue, that's one team I'd really like to play personally. Remember last week when I said that Cutter Boley's appearance for Kentucky would mend the struggles of the season as he can throw the football? It might have been that Big Orange curse, but said passing ability was left in Austin, Texas, because whatever he put on the field today was a scam and nothing more. Kinda like Mark Stoops at Kentucky. Despite being there for a decade, they will continue to live through his ability to develop random quarterbacks they pick up from the portal. Will he though? No. Mid is the ceiling in Lexington. Kentucky's offense pissed themselves more times than a college girl at a bar at 3 in the morning. Boley couldn't do it, and for good measure, they sent Gavin Wimsatt out there to watch him do dick all as well. Stoops just needs to pick up 5 or 6 more quarterbacks from the portal, so we can all watch them fail one at a time under him. But that's the thing. Nobody gives a rat's ass about their football team. Gerald Mitzi is out there getting wieners and ribs at a concession stand while watching the wieners and ribs of his own team get broken. The feeling is mutual among every Kentucky fan today. Basketball season's a coming. Though the ACC title is way out of their own hands, Louisville can take solace in Clemson's demise partially caused by Tyler Shuck and co. Jeff Brom would bring the governor's cut back to Louisville. The governor of this state is the only thing that could recover Kentucky's football program. The transfer portal window's open at least. What's Mark Stoops gonna do? Recruit? The fuck's that mean? It's impossible to be good at both football and basketball, they say. Tell that to Duke, who is one diarrhea deacon beatdown away from a 9-win season. That Nino comeback arc has truly come for Manny Diaz, who, while still being cursed by Miami Nation, has led Duke to this record despite the loss of Mike Elko and company. This is an anomaly in itself despite never actually dominating anyone they play. They are just too stubborn to lose. Every Duke fan has had at least one heart attack this season, as they can't seem to dominate anyone. Same result would occur versus Wake Forest, as now is the day Hank Bachmeier can actually hit one of his receivers. Despite the fact they had a 17-3 lead over the Blue Devils, typical Deacon football would quickly have them back in the game. The Wake Forest fanbase all immediately felt the same feeling in the air titled with, "Here we go again." After suffering through 7 losses, you'd think they would have discovered about every which way to lose a football game. But like Sherlock Holmes to a dead body, there was always more ways to find yourself shocked by the end of it all. Observe.
Murphy with time. Time is ticking though. Launches it down the field for more. Puts it on the money for a touchdown. A walk-off for Duke. Malik Murphy, the hero today.
Did you catch that? There were already fans walking away before the ball was even caught. They knew long before the catch that it was already over for them. Just like how the Deacons have already long been dead. Dave Clawson will likely get another year because, I don't know, their administration is full of a bunch of necrophiliacs and like dragging their dead body around. Duke has now taken complete control of the state of North Carolina. It's all the evidence needed to know that North Carolina might just be the tank state of football. Either that or Florida. Kansas may not be the best team in the Big 12, but they are most definitely the arbiter of chaos in the conference. They single-handedly ensured Genty Ball gets a first-round bye if they win the Mountain West. Your gift? Reality. This is a very new feeling for the Jayhawk football fans. Disappointment. With one of the more talented rosters in the conference, they're still finding themselves short of a bowl game. Dave Aranda is still doing work to secure his job for the 2025 season, and a win here would all but determine he will be safe. The rest of the team got the memo as well. Sawyer Robinson lit a fire under everyone's ass with the inclusion of their defense. Jalen Daniels is still running from the defense as you're watching this video. Devin Neal was able to show his abilities on the field one last time, but he was the one and only bright spot for the team. I feel like we've been saying that all season though. Baylor threw, ran, and pretty much diddied the entire Kansas defense. Whatever the Jayhawks did right in the last 3 games they played was missing from action today. The brain cells of Jeff Grimes was probably there too. The question of whether or not this is the standard or an outlier under Lance Leopold will be put to the test in 2025. In the meantime, you can watch the shit show you caused in the Big 12 title and beyond. I love you, Jayhawks, but you suck ass. Get out! The more things change, the more they stay the same. The Mountaineers forgot what it was like to feel like winners, but after beating the Tank down in Central Florida, they were reintroduced to pain and agony, and also Barron Morton. The Mountaineer defense didn't just get cooked, it got charred and burnt to dust, like a pie that got left in the oven for 1 year too long. This game brought back remnants of the great and late Mike Leach, as the Red Raider offense scored over 50 points. Taj Brooks would run for a career high as the fans would give him a standing ovation following this final game with them. The defense would only give up 15 points. Wait, 15 points? That's 15 points too many! Someone has to pay for this! And pay they did. In fairness, they did allow Garrett Green to throw for 250 yards on them. Despite ending the season at 8-4, many were not satisfied with this outcome. So says Micah Hudson, who hightailed it out of there. Nonetheless, a great comeback year for the Red Raiders. West Virginia would not fall for the same witchery Mike Gundy and Mark Stoops put on their programs. They want change, and change they were going to get. Just like that, they have freed themselves from the clutches of football purgatory, and they can now celebrate as the Neil Brown era has officially come to a close. They'll be able to run their victory lap in the Little Debbie Cream Pie Bowl. Try as you may, but whatever Boston College does, the CW network follows. They're stuck together like glue, kinda like how Pitt's running backs are glued to the fucking floor. Their run game was as existent as a Florida State fan's will to live. This was the price of losing Desmond Reed. With him and Eli Holsting still victim to the bug, Nate Yarnell would have to return to the field to lead the team to victory. He's got a fantastic line to guard for him, so that should help him out.
The ball is intercepted! And look at the big fella! Rumbling into the end zone, and that is a touchdown!
Yeah, by fantastic, I mean fucking terrible. The interception by this big man all but guaranteed that Pitt would be playing from behind the entire game. In what looked to be a promising year for the Panthers, the month of November would be as much of a detriment to them as it is to Mike Locksley. Pat Narduzzi went from ACC Coach of the Year to every fan of Pitt wanting him to be canned pronto. A downfall of this magnitude is something never before seen, except every year for 3 or 4 teams in the conference. I'll be sure to send my condolences to the Pop-Tart Bowl, or whichever bowl you get thrown into. The Golden Eagles reached 7 wins and could potentially get to their first 8th win season for the first time since 2009? Wait, it's really been that long? Man, time flies when you're in the ACC. With Ohio State taking the fattest dump in existence all over their own foot, the door is now open for Penn State to take their spot in the Big Ten championship game. All that stands in front of them is Mike Locksley in Maryland. So yeah, nothing at all. The Nittany Lions started out slow, letting Maryland think they might have a chance like Minnesota did. But you are no PJ Fleck. In the second quarter, belt to cheeks followed. As Maryland did in every other game this month, they forgot how to play football and practically handed Penn State the game. The Nittany Lions didn't blow up the stat sheet, as Nick Singleton and Drew Allard did only what Maryland gave to them, which was a lot of yards. MJ Morris was practically thrown to the wolves, as despite being inexperienced, is the best option the Turtles have got. But the end result ended the same. Just like PJ Fleck is stapled to eternal 7-5, Locksley and his team are stapled to can't play football past September. Good news for you, September of 2025 is only 9 months away. We'll see you then. Penn State, with their win, will now get their crack at the undefeated Duckies in the Big Ten title game. The winner will determine who will get the first round bye in the playoffs. James Franklin in big games, though? Yeah, you'll get a home playoff game, maybe. maybe the Big Ten divisions are dead after all. USC football time! What the f*** is a defense? Good question. Let's talk about it. There's none of that here though, so the only thing here we can actually discuss is the offense. The Fighting Irish were still fighting for a spot in the college football playoffs, and with the insanity of the college football world around them, it's safe to say that if they NIU this game, they're done for. Jeremiah Love and Riley Leonard would do what they've been doing for most of the season, which is dragging the defense across the entire field. Jaden Miava would do the exact same thing to their defense though. The defenders were as good as wrapping up people as Georgia players were to maintaining the speed limit. The game was an old classic shootout, the standard with Lincoln Riley. It would be entirely within the arms of Jaden Miava for USC to claim the upset, and they're fucked. Everything's fucked. USC may be ending the season at 6-6, but on the bright side, you're not alone. Caleb Williams is feeling a similar level of pain with the Bears. At this point, you can just get these two groups together for a joint therapy session. It's another season with a story all too familiar for Lincoln Riley. The offense is shining gold, capable of scoring on anybody they play with, while the defense is an absolute disaster, doing more to spike up beer sales than to stop any offense they play. I feel like at some point he'll have to answer for this, but he won't. He will continue to bring out Heisman caliber quarterbacks just to watch their stats get outdone by the opposing offense because the defense he trots out gets their period and dies every time they're on the field. But we got a new coordinator this year. Yep, I'll be sure to pat you on the back in the Holiday Bowl. Notre Dame has somehow clinched a playoff spot where they will be awaiting their opponent, which will likely be in South Bend. Hopefully said opponent doesn't South Bend you over like NIU. As long as the season prevails, I, as well as everyone else, will not be letting that go. Miami fans think that since the ACC already suffered one significant upset this week, that it was impossible for the conference to have another, especially now that all you have to do is win this game to secure a spot in the conference championship. Now you get to observe as it all gets crystal-balled up. Cam Ward against the Syracuse defense is certainly a great matchup for Miami, but Kyle McCord versus the Miami defense is like ice cream and cake. Not only did he eat, he consumed. 380 yards and 3 touchdowns, he disemboweled the cardiac arrest Canes defense. Xavier Estrepo and Jacoby George did just about everything they could to keep the Canes in the game. Cam Ward was doing Cam Ward things, and the team was moving in motion on most of their drives. But Syracuse had a complete field day on the Canes' defensive backfield. Both teams traded blow for blow, and once Syracuse took the lead, there was minimal time left in the game. Mario had a major choice to make on 4th down, and rather than go for it, he left it to analytics. Yeah, makes sense to leave the defense to get the stop. They've been getting stops all season long. As you can expect, this was the wrong choice. Syracuse chewed out the rest of the clock and stole everything from the Miami Tropical Storms. In a secret double agent move, they have somehow bumped a 9-3 Clemson into the ACC championship. Miami has been in the ACC for 2 decades, and SMU has been a part of the ACC for less than a year, and they might have an ACC title before you do. Yep, first time for everything, but you get to share with Ohio State the honors of Clown of the Week. Your playoff chances are likely down the shitter along with any other postseason achievements. Syracuse did have the respect of teaching Mario how to take a knee, which is real nice of him to do. He needs all the coaching lessons in the world. The Golden Pony of the ACC remains strong in the face of their final opposition of the regular season. With everyone else in the conference being killed off in one fell swoop, it's literally SMU where the conference reverts to the Big 12. Cal had a great set of weeks, with the win over their rival Stanford and an equipment guy making a defensive play better than anything Lincoln Riley or Brian Kelly can manifest. But just like everybody else the Horsies played against, reality has come clopping back in your direction. Fernando Mendoza out because of illnesses did no good against the opposition. Replacing him would be nobody. Not a soul. Technically someone did replace him for the game, but there wasn't any sort of offense to show for it. Kevin Jennings had little difficulty wiping out the defense that stood in their way. Thus, in their first year of the ACC, they have completely swept it harder than dirt in a Swiffer wet jet. Somehow, they still have an undefeated record all time in conference play. They weren't ready for the ACC grind, they said. Laughing my ass off. To go from the death penalty to taking over an entire Power 4 conference deserves respect. Cal managed to, at the bare minimum, make a bowl game. But I'm willing to bet that Florida State loss will be hanging over Justin Wilcox for a very long time. Auburn sucks. Did you get that part? They really, really suck. Furthermore, they are extremely inconsistent. One week you're scoring on every drive, and the next week you're offensively brain dead. The role of Auburn football in this matchup was to do everyone a favor and wipe Bama out from doing anything in the college football playoffs. They failed horribly. And this wasn't like Alabama came out and looked like they did against Georgia in the first half or LSU. Pissing themselves is a major understatement. Every time Jalen Milroe was handed the football, it was instantly out of his hands and back into Auburn possession. Any other team would take advantage of at least one of these 4 turnovers Alabama gave up, but Auburn be Auburning. The entire team combusted every time they got close to the red zone, despite all the chances they were given. Not only has Auburn shown why they got their record in the first place, but they managed to let their rival likely skedaddle their way into the college football playoffs with 3 losses. The same team that got rammed whole by Oklahoma is somehow going to back their way in there because of your efforts. Just like Ohio State, you waited until it was time to throw hands to actually show some sort of offense. Though the win earlier against Elko will help maintain Hugh Freeze for another year, the line of patience is quickly getting thin for him. Next year will have to show immediate results. Otherwise, get out! Though the Big 12 is entirely up in flames, the greatest part about this all is that it's being saved by the team projected to finish at the very bottom of the tank conference. Cam Skibbity has become one of the mascots of this 2024 season through his persistence and the absolute mass he brings to the table every week. Another 3 touchdowns for this individual would stuff Arizona in a locker once again. In many cases, rivalry games can be the cause of significant upsets in the college football world. Such was not the case in the state of Arizona. As we already know, Arizona has lived and died by the Fafita to McMillan combo. Bad news, 68 yards won't get it done. I think you already understand that though. In a comedic twist of fate, rather than the players throwing hands on the field, the mascots would partake in a kerfuffle straight out of Looney Tunes, a fitting cartoon for a fitting team. Arizona is a complete disaster. Coming off of one of your worst seasons in recent memory, you will also very likely be without McMillan or Fafita next year, as they will both likely be going pro. What will you have left? Brennan, I guess? Yeah, I'd hate my life too. Arizona State fans would be forced to be glued to their TVs in anticipation of the wins they need to propel them to the Big 12 title game. We shall see in due time who's going there. If there is anyone out there who believes that Missouri doesn't belong in the SEC, you've got all the proof you need right here. Somehow before any of the Big Ten teams, Missouri has secured a game in the snow. Though they would be playing in this game, the actual matchup would be the Arkansas Razorbacks versus, you guessed it, the Arkansas Razorbacks. Similar to Alabama, Arkansas consistently shit the football away drive after drive. Unlike Bama, there is no high-end talent to bail out the Piggies. This result was much closer in the end, as the Tyson Chickens struggled to maintain the lead they spent all game getting. Like a fat man on the scooter in a Walmart looking for Oreos, Brady Cook drove through the aisles of the Arkansas defense in a fourth quarter effort to seal the deal. Welcome to Arkansas football.
Green throws to the end zone. Incomplete. Missouri beats Arkansas again.
Arkansas beating Arkansas instead of Mizzou. Truly a Thanksgiving tradition like no other. Each and every week I continue to question life knowing Tennessee lost to this team. Good news is for the Piggies and Sam Pittman, this season has come to a close with the exception of the bowl game which 9 people will be in attendance for. Before you even consider the idea of changing the leadership, the administration already took care of that. Don't act surprised, you made a bowl. Hog Nation will ride with Pittman until they have the permission to make Bobby Petrino head coach again. Though it was another successful season for Eli Drinkwitz, he would have to say so long to some serious weapons on the team, including that of Luther Burden, who would be going pro. Just be happy you ended the season ranked. Wait a minute, I thought the goal of all these Big Ten teams was to ensure each and every one of them ended with a sub-500 record. Looks like Greg Schiano gives no fucks about that. Stealing Mizzou's thunder by having also another snow game, the Spartans were expected to come out on senior day with the ball in the line and fight harder than they have the entire season. Before anything, let me take a moment to let you know that the Spartans are #1 in hockey. What's that? Nobody gives a damn? Yep, thought so. In the minimal time the Spartans were allowed on the field, Aiden Childs was very on and off. He was on for the first score of the football game and then off for the rest of the night. Through the efforts of Athon Krakatoa and Kyle Monungai, Rutgers scored on 8 of their 9 possessions and swiftly threw the Fighting Mel Cuckers into the coffin. I bet you wish Mel Cucker were back, weren't you? Though the season had its major set of ups and downs, the Scarlet Knights can remedy the fact that this season was an improvement over last. 2 bowl seasons in a row is a significant feat for a program which was literally only good for being gum on the shoe of the Big Ten East. The Spartans' crusade comes to a close as Jonathan Smith fails to impress anyone in his first season for them. We gotta get better as the games progress. Well, that would be real fine and dandy if you had infinite games on your schedule. You would get nothing but the poaching of one of your defensive coaches to UCLA. This does give you a chance to go on a little coaching search though, because every bit counts.
Get the hell out of here.
Senior Day in the Rose Bowl is filled with more seniors than actual fans. Are there any fans that are there that aren't parents of the players? An important question with an answer that will likely be remained unknown for a long time. Here's another. Where did UCLA's offense go? Did they even have one to begin with? Though their bowl hopes have already been kneel-browned, UCLA could finish the season with some satisfaction of knowing that there is hope for next year. There's also hope knowing that Ethan Garbus will not be playing quarterback for UCLA next season. With all the agony he caused Bruins fans this season, he would end off the season on a much better note, as he passed for nearly 300 yards on the Bulldogs. For that and that alone, he might earn a standing ovation. Despite the lack of scoring, the defense would ensure that Fresno wouldn't be going anywhere near the end zone. It's very likely this Fresno team will be sleeping with a sleep paralysis demon in the form of Carson Swininger for weeks on end until their bowl game. They can at least be happy about the fact they are going into the postseason and the Bruins aren't. Though it was quite a bad year for them, you knew what you were getting into when you took your flight to the Big Ten. Give yourself a pat on the back as you didn't completely tank in your first year of Big Ten play. Now go ahead and get ready for that 6-5 final score against Utah next season. Here it is, the final College Tank Bowl of 2024. Yes, these teams don't necessarily have losing records, but they ain't got winning ones either. Though there is a revolution for the firing of Dave Doeren, he has not yet been canned from the program. The same can't be said for Matt Brown though, who has finally been accepted into a retirement home. With the coaching search that includes the likes of Arthur Smith, it's abundantly clear that the Tar Heel administration has no fucking clue what they are doing. Rather than blame themselves for their own incompetence, they'll likely blame Dinkelberg or something. As for the game itself, the Wolfpack needs to win this one in order to secure a spot in the bowl season. But with Freddie Kitchens taking over duties for the current period, the Tar Heels would go down swinging if they had to. Both teams started the season with veteran quarterbacks, and under different circumstances have found themselves at the end of the season with 2 up-and-coming names for the future. Jacoby Criswell and CJ Bailey would complete half of their passes one more time this regular season. Both oppositions traded blows through the entire game. As the game reached its apex though, the curse of Mac Brown from beyond the nursing home would punish the Tar Heels for not letting him crap himself one last time. Thus, after capping off a 75-yard drive, NC State would seal the deal over their rivals. Perfect timing too, because now it's time to throw hands again. Isn't this like the 7th time this has happened this day? It's safe to say that the Tar Heel Nation is just happy the suffering is almost over, and sooner or later, they'll have a real coach take over the reins of the program. NC State will at the bare minimum make the threshold of the postseason. Alright! But their efforts would come at a price. Specifically, Kevin Concepcion being outbid to another school. You'd have to find another ace factor for Dave Doeren to waste. In any other year, this game would be meaningless to anyone other than the 2 fan bases meeting up on the gridiron. But this is a new age of college football. It has become a marquee game for the conference. The Horn shit posters winning would all but guarantee a spot for Cam Skibbity and company in the Big 12 championship game. Don't try to follow along, just take the information for what it is. Though the Bearcats had the home field of Nipples Stadium to their advantage, it would matter very little when the crowd themselves were contributing more offense than the Bearcats themselves. Brandon Sorsby continued off of what he did in the last 4 games by doing Jack Diddley Doodah's squat to score for the Bearcats. TCU didn't fare much better either, but a special teams miscue and said avoidance of mistakes on their end by Josh Hoover carried them to a quick lead over Cincy. How a team could fail so hard at special teams is quite the significant feat to pull off. Though TCU's offense went completely ghost in the second half, Cincy constantly dying would set the curtains in favor of the Hypnotoads. Sonny Dykes carried the professional shitposters to what is going to be a much better year than 2023. Considering they were staring down a tank at the start of the year, they should feel accomplished. Cincy would be victims of their second losing season in a row. I wonder what the trend is there. It might just have to do with joining a particular conference. Either that or a coaching miscue. At least Luke Fickell will fit right back in. Get out! Indiana, you do realize you're already in the playoffs, right? Yes, you needed to beat Purdue, but not end their entire bloodline and send them back to the days of the dinosaurs. This isn't the most surprising outcome considering that Indiana was trying to make a statement to the college football world. If the statement was Purdue fucking sucks, then I suppose mission accomplished. Curtis Pork not only threw an infinite set of dimes on Purdue, but he tied a record for 6 touchdowns in a single game. We aren't satisfied, says Kurt Kignetti. Yeah, I guess there's room for more than one dead body on the Hoosier train. Wherever this train was supposed to go, it has become more derailed than anything I've seen in the Polar Express. Here's some astounding records for Purdue as they close out the season. Winless in league play for the 4th time since 1946. Failed to beat an FBS foe for the 2nd time in college football modern era. It was shut out by Indiana for the 1st time since 1945. Truly astonishing and most motivating. Oh no, Ryan Walters said the thing. He really just said the thing. When coaches are talking about how good they thought practice was as a bargaining chip of sorts, that's how you know it's curtains. Sure, the Hoosiers sent the program straight to the Shadow Realm on this day, but through your efforts, a jubilating day has come for the Soilermaker faithful. It's finally over. It's kind of poetic in a way. We were talking about this game earlier in the year as a contender for the ultimate college tank bowl. While nothing in the nation could help to save Florida State's 2024 season, Florida has not only turned their season around, but went well beyond expectations. It's a testament to the job that Billy Napier has done to maintain some sort of respect for the Gator faithful. Now he, along with the healthy DJ Lagway, get to disavow whatever life there was at a Tallahassee. Florida State somehow managed to figuratively and literally create football dysentery, as they fumbled the ball more times than I've seen literally anyone do in my entire life. 8 fucking fumbles? Are y'all trying to tank? There's no reward for this! Mike Norvell will be your coach next year, so maybe you should have thought twice about spending all your money on lawsuits against the conference you reside in. It, along with everything else in the United States, owns you. You know what else would really spice this ending up? You guessed it. Another bench-clearing brawl resulting from a flag planted on midfield. Let this flag be a reminder that better days are coming. After suffering your worst season since a time before Bobby Bowden came to town, it'd be an understatement to say that the Mike Norvell transfer portal experiment better work this time. I'm not sure if another Jordan Travis is in waiting, but Norvell better get on his hands and knees and pray to Tonto that there's a distant future where Florida State football doesn't suck. It's somewhere out there. Just ask Kirk Herbstreit. I know y'all love that guy. Here's an idea. Why not the loser coach of this matchup be forced into a 30-minute press conference full of fans of their own team? The questions which follow? Why? Just why? The years have been getting progressively worse under Brian Kelly. A totally predictable outcome guessed from anyone with an actual brain and not one made of jambalaya. But with the Sooners coming to town, whatever struggles LSU had on offense would have them being thankful about all the things they do have. Like a quarterback who can hit receivers that can catch for more than 1 reception per game, and a guy leading it who can get hit sticked out of the game just to come back moments later like it never happened. Though this reality isn't the most pleasant one for LSU fans, it's the reality you live in, and you'll have to make do with what you have. Despite being benched for half the season, Jackson Arnold appeared to be the best quarterback Oklahoma has to offer. It's a clear testament to how ugly their quarterback situation actually is. Though their run game surpasses LSU's, you couldn't rely on that for the entire game. LSU just has way too much high-end talent to let that occur. Oklahoma's regular season would come to a close in the same way it began. Offensive issues by the dozen. But do not fret, as a new man walks into town with a philosophy that could change everything. If Ben Arbuckle can fix Oklahoma's offense, give him the Broyles Award yesteryear. LSU fans have convinced themselves that Nuss got the Burrow hit and is now getting ready for an undefeated season. Do I have to remind you again? Your coach is Brian Kelly! The pressure is on for the Ducks as rival Washington comes to town, who, as we know from the past, has been the kryptonite of Dan Lanning. But a task like this was an extremely tough one to pull off for a true freshman. Oh yeah, Rogers got benched again. While Desmond Williams did decent in the game, the fact that Oregon's offense got their swagger back with the return of Tez Johnson did them no good in trying to pull off the upset of the ages. Washington was able to do more against the Duck defense than most, but the fact they weren't able to stop them at 80 point assured that Dan Lanning would finally defeat his boogeyman. Though the Huskies lead the all-time series, it matters little when Oregon's talent level carries the mass of the sun. Washington fans have reverted to the form of reminiscence, talking about their national title appearance as if it has any relevance to today. Tell that to Michigan, why don't you? Oregon will end the regular season being the only team in the nation with as many losses as the Ducks' national championship count. If there's any year to break that trend, it would have to be this year. You practically got a golden ticket there. Idaho fans have to feel like the biggest moral winners of all time right now. 13 years. 13 years we've waited for this storied rivalry to make its long-awaited return to college football. The history between these two programs is unparalleled by many. With the SEC championship appearance also on the line, the stakes aren't any higher for these two squads. What's the gift for waiting as long as we did? Disappointment. All this time to prepare for the game, and Mike Elko put it as his central focus, which was why he lost to the bums like Auburn on the road. You come back home, and this is the product you put on the field? It was another game of watching one team shit themselves and the other team responding by shitting harder. Marcel Reed, with all the opportunities he was given, put up an offensive performance as entertaining as watching paint dry. Over 100,000 in attendance, and they had to witness the most lethargic offensive incompetence on the field. Arch Manning came in for one play and managed to outscore Reed. Pathetic. What'd you mean when you said all eyes were on Texas, Elko? Did you mean all eyes were on them to make the SEC title? Because that's exactly what happened. Maybe this rivalry should stay retired until A&M finds an offense on the field, and not after the game this time. Texas, through the suboptimal shittery of their state rival, has made it to the SEC title game. Where will they get their long-awaited rematch with the one team who beat them? Winning this game would put any rest to the narratives about soft schedules and the Longhorns being overrated. A&M finishes out year one under Mike Elko in the most poetic way possible. Dread from it, run from it, Texas 8-4 still arrives. Watching games like these makes me really feel for anyone stupid enough to bet on the Big 12. If you put any money on anyone in this conference after week 6, it's pretty easy to find out that you just hate money. You want to know what these two quarterbacks hate? Completing passes. Avery Johnson and Rocco Purdy were throwing footballs like they were playing the Wii. Shit was just flying everywhere. Whatever hype was bought into Avery Johnson needs to be returned to sender until he can complete more than half of his throws. Rocco Purdy's performance is sort of par for the course for the Cyclones, so nothing out of the ordinary there. Kansas State looked like the better team on the field, but self-mutilation through turnovers has put them behind for the entire game. If only there was another way to gain yards other than slinging the football at the wall. If only. Oh yeah, ever try running the ball? Kansas State has one of the most underutilized running back corps I've seen up to date. You gave Dylan Edwards 3 carries all game? Yep, I could smell another transfer. Down by 8 with minimal time left, Johnson would have to formulate a miracle, and it's 4th down already.
Play to keep it going. Roberson's first snap of the night. He escapes, running out of time. Roberson, incomplete.
Next time for reference, it would be wise to teach Johnson how to throw a football before dropping the run game. You're still going bowling, but with the high-end talent being underutilized, major disappointment is in the air. The Typhoons have managed to win 10 games in what will so far be one of their best seasons in program history. The final match of the Big 12 will determine the two squads heading to the title game. Damn, it's that close? That's the type of stakes the SEC only wishes it could have. This is an interesting case of win or go home for both squads. Dillman won today, actually. Based on a sign from the future, it was pretty clear who was starting as the quarterback for the Cavs today. Tony Muskett, with the talent he had to work with, tried what he could to lead Virginia to victory. With both Kyron Drones and Colin Schlee out from the bug, the Hokies would be forced to bring out the legendary Pop Watson III. He proceeded to put his gigantic turkey balls all over the faces of their rival. Mixed with a decent running back performance, it ensured that the offense would be infinite steps ahead of their rival. Muskett himself was the only guy in Virginia who could run the ball. The low-end talent would come up short as they didn't have the personnel necessary to keep up with the Turkeys. There would be no Thanksgiving for the Cavs. Unless you're a fan of ham. The Commonwealth Cup belongs to the Hokies. Though the season is considered rare and poor, it is enough of an award to propel Virginia Tech to bowl eligibility. Tony Elliott's squad would not have the same luck. Though the season started strong and ended in failure, at least you managed to do better than the previous season. And as I've said for many in your conference, you aren't Florida State, so be happy about that. But get out. BYU has a choice to make. They can either sell this game away to give Travis Hunter another opportunity to prop up his stats, or win the game, ensuring a 10-win season on their part, while also letting the Cyclones cut Deion Sanders out of the playoffs. As you can expect, they chose the latter. Though BYU's offense hasn't been the same since the loss to Kansas, they are still able to function better than that of Houston, which is the offensive equivalent of a McDonald's ice cream machine. Zion Chris had arguably one of his best performances on the field, but up against the Mormon defensive wall, it was just too much to breach. They started out strong in the first quarter just to fart away in the next three. If you force the opposition to have their season high amount of fumbles this season and can't do anything with them, you don't deserve to win. Willie Fritz has some serious work ahead of him if he wants to build this program into something respectable in the Big 12. Either that or they can just become the new Kansas of the conference. BYU ensures that the Big 12 title will be between the Typhoons and Cam Skibbity, two teams that I'm sure everyone had no clue were going to be up there until 5 seconds ago. Something tells me the convolution we saw this season in the Big 12 will be the same in the next, just a whole new set of teams at the top. All hail the true tank conference. Whew. That is everything. That wraps up the final week. The conference championships are finalized, and we have all of our bowl-eligible teams as well. It's been an incredible season, but the fun as we know it has just begun. From here onward, things will get really interesting, especially the crying on Selection Sunday, which will bring joy to many and rage to others. Here's the top 25 for this week. At this point, there isn't a single person who's going to get it right. We just kind of have to hope that ours is the closest one on Selection Sunday. For all of you subscribed to the Patreon, I appreciate your support as always. You're all good people and should be recognized as such. I'll see you guys next week after we figure out which teams are going to the big dance. Until then, power to Tardaria!